that the president talked about today, which is something that I feel like has fallen out of the national discussion recently, is testing. He said that he will use the Defense Production Act to increase the supply of rapid at-home tests and make them more affordable. He said places like Walmart and Amazon and Kroger will begin to supply those tests at cost as soon as next week. Can you just talk a little bit from a scientific perspective into about how testing fits into this muscular new approach, how Americans in our private lives, particularly if we have access to costs, to tests we can buy ourselves at an affordable rate, how we should think about testing in our lives now moving forward?
I can talk just personally, right? As a pediatrician, and as a grandfather. I get a phone call, it's 9 o'clock at night, my grandchild has a fever, has some symptoms. Kids get runny noses, fevers all the time, but you want to know. You want to know whether this is COVID, because there are things you can do. And the fact is, having at-home tests, especially, this is a big deal, getting a real discount by these companies that you can order these in-home tests. You want to have an in-home test, you run it, and you could know in 15, 30 minutes whether this is COVID or this is just a typical cold. It's very important. We have to give people the tools, especially when it comes to our kids. We have to create environments that protect them. Most important thing to protect them is having communities that are vaccinated, families that are vaccinated. But these tests can make a real difference in people's lives, in families' lives.
Dr. Kessler, one of the other reasons that testing is so important, and you and I have talked about this, I think you and I had one of the earliest televised conversations on this topic since the start of the pandemic, but if you do know that you have COVID early enough, if you can catch it before you become seriously ill enough that you need to be hospitalized, you do have a treatment option that you don't have if you wait until you get sicker later on in the course of the disease, and that is these monoclonal antibody treatments. And you and I have talked months ago about how effective they are, but how difficult it's been to ensure a lot of uptake. People, again, need to take those treatments before they're too terribly sick. The president today talked about increasing the pace of monoclonal antibody shipments across the country, upping it by 50%. We've seen demand for these treatments go way up over the summer, a lot more uptake of these treatments. How do you think that part of the pandemic response is going, and how hopeful do you feel about those treatments?
I'm very hopeful about those treatments. Those treatments work. The fact is, on July 1st, we were shipping about 10,000 of those regimens a week. We increased that dramatically to more than 100,000, and we're committed to sending out 150,000 a week. So a big uptake. Obviously, the downside of that is Delta is requiring us to use more. We want to get that curve down. But if you test positive and you are at risk for hospitalization, if you are at high risk, you should get monoclonal antibodies.
Dr. David Kessler, co-chair of President Biden's COVID Advisory Board, former FDA Commissioner. Sir, thank you for your time and, as always, for your clarity tonight. It's an honor to have this time with you.
My pleasure, Rich.